Okay, so on today's episode of Rare, we are welcoming Tom Baldwin. So Tom is co-founder and CEO of the UCL spin-out Guilford Street Laboratories. So they're a company created to advance the state of diagnostics in healthcare, particularly for those suffering with rare cardiac and neurodegenerative diseases. So alongside his position at Guilford Street Laboratories, Tom is also a research fellow at UCL, conducting research that focuses on improving our understanding of the immune response to treatment in patients with rare disease. So Tom has joined us on Rare today to introduce the company and to talk us through their purpose or their vision. So welcome, Tom. Before we do talk about GSL, can you talk us through your journey so far?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Laura. Thanks for having me. So I started my career quite a number of years back now in sales, actually. So I did a year in recruitment, not too dissimilar from yourself. However, my focus was on accountants and local government, so not quite as interesting as yours, but I always sort of felt, even when I was working in sales, a bit of a pull back towards life sciences. So after I'd done my time in recruitment, I went back to university, did a master's in molecular biology, at which point I moved to Great Ormond Street Hospital, the Institute of Child Health. So I did my PhD there a number of years ago. We were focused on rare forms of childhood epilepsy, with Dravet syndrome in particular. And it was I sort of first got my introduction really to the rare disease space and all of the amazing work that gets done lab side, particularly at the Institute. And it was also where I got my introduction to all things mass spectrometry and biomarkers and how they can be used as part of clinical development and drug discovery all the way through to clinical trials.
Okay, great. And so how then did GSL come to fruition?
So after my PhD, I made the big move up 2 floors of stairs, flights of stairs, where we started working with Professor Kevin Mills and Dr. Wendy Hayward. So Kevin and Wendy have for a long time now run the translational mass spec team at GOSH. And what this means is they've got 30 plus years experience in development and translation and rollout of fluid-based biomarker tests, specifically within rare disease. And I think by now the group's had something like 30 tests developed and rolled out either into the NHS or industry. So a real sort of pedigree in the area. I'd started working on my PhD and then got to develop working with Kevin and Wendy. Now, unfortunately, working in this area, there's not really many silver bullet tests left to discover. So single biomarker tests that can perfectly pull apart certain diseases. If we think about type 1 diabetes, you think glucose. In rare disease, it's not always as simple as that. So what our group has developed an interest in, a bit of a speciality in, is using mass spectrometry to create panels of biomarkers where we measure 5 to 10 different proteins or lipids, and then use machine learning algorithms to pull these together, which then allows us to make a really sort of sensitive and specific test for a variety of different diseases that previously didn't have anything. So hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is one thing that comes to mind that we're working on currently. And as part of the work we've been doing academically over the last few years, we developed a new platform for the measurement of anti-drug antibodies, with a particular focus on enzyme replacement therapies in rare disease. And by using mass spec, we were a bit advancing the sort of landscape for how this testing is done, where we're giving clinicians and companies readouts on the entire immunocomplex instead of what's currently available, where you typically get a measurement on sort of 1 or 2. Which clinicians were really excited about. Currently, if they want to look at a patient's antibody response to these enzyme therapies, they typically have to send a sample back to the company who's actually manufacturing and selling the drug, which can take a very long time. You also can't get comparisons done to other drugs that might be available. And when we think about the NHS is paying upwards of £200,000 per patient per year for some of these drugs. There is a real need to be understanding whether a patient's antibody response is somehow limiting the effectiveness. So we felt like we had something important on our hands in this new piece of technology. We had interest in commercialization to license it out, but we felt quite strongly that given our track record in the development and rollout and offering of tests like these, the safest hands were our own in this case. We were very fortunate to be backed by UCL business in our endeavour to form a spin-out to house this technology. And that's what we went ahead and did. So we formed GSL as a University College London spin-out. We're, again, very fortunate in our infancy to also be backed by Myocardium AI, which are another UCL spin-out, where the CEO and COO joined our board. Myocardium were instrumental in our early days in incubating the business and getting us up and running to where we are now. So now we are at a position where we're starting to not only offer our new method for antibody measurements to clinicians, to industry, we also are able then to offer our expertise in the development and rollout of other indications we work on, as we mentioned, like rare disease or cardiac and even neurodegeneration.
Yeah, wow, it sounds really impressive. But that leads us nicely onto then, what is the mission or the vision of GSL?
So I think we're starting this endeavour at quite an interesting time. I think historically there hasn't been a consistent inclusion of these kinds of fluid-based biomarkers in clinical trials. I think recently there was a study that showed only 5% of MS trials ongoing and over the last decade had actually included them. But there is documented evidence suggesting that these kinds of proteins or lipids should be included as part of your endpoints or part of diagnostics. And we're perfectly positioned now to start offering these and developing these tests for clinical trials. So as a company, the entire aim is to utilize the extensive decades worth of experience of our founding team in this kind of biomarker development to expedite the landscape of diagnostics and all the way through to drug discovery and therapeutic development with a focus on rare disease, but also branching out into other indications as well.
Yeah, great. So what can we expect then from GSL in the next 12 months?
So we are up and running now. It's taken us a while to get here, but the company's up and running and doors are open. So we've begun working with partners across a variety of therapeutic areas to either offer tests that we currently have available or in certain cases develop new tests for them as part of their preclinical or early stage clinical development. The major aim for us, particularly over the coming year, is to bring some of our pre-existing or lead products to market. And for me, a particular focus on our multiplex panel for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, particularly as we're starting to see actual therapies available for cardiac conditions like HCM now. I think it's a really poignant time to be bringing a widely available and high throughput diagnostic test to the market. So that's the focus for us.
Yeah, great. Well, Tom, best of luck for you and the team. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out on any press releases and looking for you in the news. And thanks a lot for taking part in this episode of Rare.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
Thanks.